everybody, it's Romania Black, and I'm not gonna lie, with the heat like it is, I kind of wish I was in the cave that Richeh and Agat are in. We are on episode 12 of Witch Hat Atelier. We are on the penultimate episode. I originally thought that this was a season finale, and I was like, oh, things are gonna go down. But now that I know we have one more episode next week, I'm like, okay, well, either they're gonna do one of two things. Either things are going to go down in this episode, and then next week we're going to have the aftermath episode and the setup for season 2, or it's going to end on a cliffhanger this episode, and then we're going to have the climax and the aftermath next week. So we'll see which one it is. But I have been made aware because I have a My Anime List account, and they posted on there, they're like, oh, season 2's been announced. And I was like, okay, so they are making a season 2. Not surprised, because the series is that good that it's going to be in production. And so I'm actually really excited. I'm not sad that we're ending season 1. I'm telling myself that. Next week might be a different story. I'm not sad because we still have Witch Atelier Kitchen, which I have already recorded episode 1, chapter 1 of that, which is going to come out the week after episode 13. Super excited. I want to make it a monthly deal at least, and then if I get time, we'll see where it goes from there, but it's at least going to be a monthly occurrence. We're going to get our monthly dosage of Elrugio and Qifrey, and I'm pretty excited about that. And then also, as it gets closer to season 2, I will be doing manga reviews, things like that, and so I'm pretty excited. So I'm hopefully going to get to the comments for episodes 10 and 11 next week, and then all the comments that come for episodes 12 and 13 after that will be in the Witch Hat Atelier Kitchen and all of that good stuff. So if I see any of your comments that I like, I will bring those up in future episodes, and we will get to talk about that. So thank you all so much. Speaking of that, I have a lot of comments and a lot of hot takes, controversial things to talk about with you before we even start this episode. I've been gathering comments like Pokemon over here, gathering them like badges, ready to talk about them for episodes 9 and episode 10, because there was quite a bit to talk about, and then we got to talk about the dub. So this could be a long intro. It will be time-stamped. If you want to hear what others have had to say and my reactions to that, then listen up, but otherwise you'll be able to kind of move around this video as you will. But let's go ahead and start these comments, right? Let's start with episode 9, because we have a couple from that episode. Alcor3209. We're going to talk a little bit about Qifrey and the healing witches, so let's get into that. Alcor3209 said for episode 9, while the healing craft witches and hospital signs are very similar, they do have one major difference. The hospital one lacks the ring around the cross that the witches had. The difference looks important since the ring is what makes the spells activate. And I was like, that's such a clever thing indeed, right? To not have the ring anymore. I feel like that's intentional. I feel as if it is very intentional that that's not there. And then the apparently the author is doing episode commentaries on Twitter, and in episode 9, she revealed new info about the casual clothes. Coco and Tetia's were bought in Calm, which we've been to. Agat brought hers from home, so girl comes from money. And Richeh and Qifrey's casual robes were thank you gifts from the shepherds from a nearby village. We're not saying where the slutty shirt of Qifrey's is from. But the jacket and the casual robe. Yes, yes, yes. I love the author puts thoughts into small things like this as well. I do too. Speaking of which, speaking of clothing and speaking of Qifrey, Elle over on the Discord wanted to share this tweet from one of the authors of episode, or one of the animators for episode 9, rather. One of the animators actually posted this on Twitter. Actually posted this. They are an animator for the official episode, so keep that in mind. But they said, at Habaradu, says, can I just say, my first exposure to the Witch Hat Atelier community was someone tweeting a pic of wet Qifrey when he does the twin bottle experiment. Someone tweeted something along the lines of, quote, no one can protect his womb from me. And honestly, I drew that scene the way too lewd because I wanted to do right by that person. I can no longer find the tweet, but honestly, I feel like my work on Witch Hat Atelier has become more to please the fans than anything. I'm so happy that most seem happy with the adaptation. So because everybody is horny on Maine over on Twitter, the animators are picking up on that and they're like, oh, you want fan service? We'll give you fan service. And all I can say is, I guess keep it up. If you just want to keep seeing Qifrey and Olrugio in their sexy, thirsty selves, that's insane. So, speaking of Qifrey, Tasto3204 for episode 9 says, it's so interesting how Qifrey refers to the witches of healing craft as righteous. I wonder if that is his personal view, or if the witch society at large considers them to have been a genuinely good and altruistic faction that unfortunately had to be taken out for the greater good. Can you imagine the witches just telling their apprentices at some point, yeah, there used to be healers that help people with magic, but we had to take them out for the pack to stand. It is what it is. And if that's not common knowledge, something that's usually kept hidden or thought better off forgotten, how does Qifrey know? The 4 words, how does Qifrey know, is the question of the series. And I know at some point they're going to tell us, so I don't want to know. I don't want to hear from the manga readers how he knows all these things. We will find out eventually. But it is fascinating that Qifrey has just casual access to all this knowledge. And maybe other witches do too, and they just choose to turn the other way and be complicit in that. But it is kind of crazy that all of a sudden the ancient ones were like, now we gotta get rid of all of it. It's just for the better good. But you know, in our own world, in the real world, mob mentalities are a lot stronger than you think. And people do kind of go along with the grain out of fear of rejection or being seen as the outsider. So it's a scary concept how quickly people can get on bandwagons to avoid being scapegoats. It's kind of crazy. So, speaking of which, Con Clasher 3 for episode 9 says, this episode 9, further proves how risky and dangerous Qifrey has been. By investigating the Brimmed caps himself, he essentially rushed into an unknown situation and led the eyeball to his atelier, thus endangering his students. Had he listened to Olrugio and handed the vial to the authorities, for all we know, the eyeball might have actually been caught, or at the very least, not able to retrieve the ink and the twin vial metals, which the pointed caps could then use to study and learn more about what the Brimmed caps are up to. I thought this was a really good point to bring up because, yes, Qifrey is an interesting character because I'm not saying he's self-righteous. I don't want to use that terminology, but he very much believes he is in the right with what he is doing. He's like, well, I have to do this. I have to find them. It's for the betterment of whatever, we've not really been told yet. But Qifrey is very much okay with putting people in danger to try get what he wants. And he is very convinced with his hubris that he will be able to handle it. And I'm like, and Conclasher brings up a good point. He literally let the eyeball walk right into their atelier. He could have turned around and went and attacked Coco, and Qifrey on the ground would have had no way to stop him. It just happened to be that he didn't end up doing it. Maybe because Olrugio was there and he didn't want to like draw suspicion, whatever, and he's trying to be mysterious, or they, I keep saying say they, but because we don't know the gender of the masked witch. But in any case, it is rather interesting. And the masked witch could be non-binary, so I don't want to throw that out there. But it is interesting that Qifrey was so okay with doing this at home and thought he was in control when we find out that he wasn't. For episode 10, No Cover says, we did get some info on the tower the first time we were in Con. It is used to protect the city from the mole worms that live in the woods on the far bank. Those mole worms, they still freak me out. Not happy about those. But Silva C. Fazbear Productions adds to that, saying, it's a blink and miss moment. But in actuality, in episode 4, when it shows the masked witch before Coco running outside, the shot was in Silverwash, Tarda's point of view, which actually foreshadows his condition. I really love that both those comments talk about things in the past that in hindsight you're like, yeah, we did talk about those. Those were introduced. The idea of the tower being there for the mole worms, and then Tarda's like Silverwash being foreshadowed way back in episode 4. The continuity and the connections that this series makes are one of the reasons I really enjoy this series, because you just get those little Easter eggs and you're like, oh yeah, that's so cool. So then Black Widow Queen for episode 10 says, it's definitely not illegal for Tarda to be using magic. He's still from a witch family, and therefore he's still allowed to know about the secret of magic and how to cast. It's just simply that no one wants to take him as an apprentice due to his disability, not that they're explicitly barring him from teaching him. But here's the thing. You don't get very far in the witching world unless you get your degree and graduate. They really have made it apparent that, and you can kind of equate it to reality, you will not go far. You will not be able to sustain yourself and survive in the witching society world if you do not become a witch. Because eventually they're going to start questioning what is your usefulness to society. And it very much is a parallel to our own world in how we ascribe usefulness to people. The reality is we're all human. We all should have the same basic rights. But in a lot of places, under a lot of governments, people are only given access to certain freedoms and rights based on their usefulness. How useful are you to this society? And the witch society is like that, fully exemplified. If you cannot be resourceful and useful, then we don't have much use for you, and you might need to get your memory wiped and get kicked out. Because they even say that to Tarda. They're like, well, at least he can make wands. What if he couldn't? What if he couldn't advance? I feel as if the witch society is basing a lot of what they're doing on, can you become an apprentice? Can you further the society? Can you keep up the society's parameters? And Tarda, since he can't, is kind of a liability. Sure, he knows magic. He was able to learn it. But the moment they decided he couldn't be an apprentice, he's kind of locked in this very specific role that he can never get out of if he wants to stay in the witch community. And that's problematic, as we've talked about in the episodes. Marshmeo for episode 10, going back to the lighthouse, says, for me, I feel like the lighthouse is a representation of witch society, or maybe their hold over magic. Its purpose on the surface is to be a light in the dark, but the way it's framed makes it look like a lonely, closed-off tower of the witch's own making. With how stark white it is, and that it's the tallest building around, it feels like a watchful eye. Which I think kind of goes back to Qifrey saying that like magic is supposed to be this light through the darkness to guide people. I genuinely believe that Qifrey believes this, and that's why he loves magic so much, because of its potential. But as we've seen with some of the other witches in this series, I don't know if they all share like the sparkling eye, like idealism around magic that Qifrey does. And I feel like that's what we're going to find out, that if you're trying to tell me that this magic society is a utopia, hell no, there's corruption within. Just look at Kukro. That's step one. That's red flag number one. And he's just a random bystander witch. He's not even in any authoritative position. I mean, look at Easties, who is willing to wipe Coco's memory without any proper evidence just because she could be a threat. You know, just things like that. Things that could easily escalate really quickly and go down slippery slopes if we're not careful. You know, things like that, whatever. But I do love that idea of the metaphor of the watchful eye and the tower and how it kind of represents witch society. I love that. So then H-Banana7 says, I do have a tiny bit of sympathy for the witches. And I do too, but H-Banana says, they were born into the system and have been conditioned to maintain the status quo. Each witch is riding a fine line of hypocrisy and committing to helping the world. They all have the power to challenge the power system, but they don't. It wasn't them that set up the system, but they benefit from the system. Kind of like how men benefit from patriarchy, but only a few men see the system for what it is and try to dismantle it. Most men are born into a patriarchal society and cannot understand why feminists exist. But this is where I'm going to challenge it a little bit, in that just because I feel like that's my issue. That's my issue, is that these witches know about the system. They are complicit because it benefits them. They don't care about the outsiders knowing magic. They don't care that those people could die, or that those people could be helped, or that those people are in trouble. They're like, yeah, well, if it benefits us, we'll help you. If there's something in it for us, we'll help you. But even the act of them saving the man's tavern is a way of projecting power and maintaining the system in place. They help him in the tavern. Do those snobby witches care about that tavern being burnt up? I don't think they cared one bit, but I think it's to exert that they are a status above the tavern owner and the ordinary people, and that they have this power set up. And if they don't flex it, then the people will be like, well, then what use are you? And it will destroy that sense of superiority, which a lot of those witches, I have no doubt, take advantage of. So Qifrey is a saint compared to a lot, I'm sure. Same with Olrugio, but we're seeing with Kukro that there is some out of touchness with the witch society. And it has that air of elitism and hypocrisy that my radars are flinging off. So I do have sympathy for the witches that are like Qifrey trying to do good. But then at the same time, I'm like, you are complicit within a system that is corruptible. But you're just like, it won't happen. It would never happen to us. Well, never could. I don't know. But I do like that in addition to that, I think H-Banana7 brings up a really good point. And then Yejean Lee 592 brings up with episode 9, your discussion at the end made me realize I haven't thought about what happens to Coco after saving her mother. She'll have to choose between magic and her mom again, because I doubt the witches will let her stay in contact with a non-witch if she chooses to continue practicing it. I feel several ways about that comment. One, we have seen witches interacting with non-witches. The problem is that Coco's mom believes that you have to be born to be a witch, and if Coco can use magic, that dismantles the entire system. So you are correct there. Here's the thing. That's the crux. Is Coco going to choose to save her mom and stay away from her because otherwise that'll dismantle the witch society? Or is Coco going to lead to a revolutionary change within the witch society that will dismantle all of their current practices and reestablish it? Because that's what's going to happen for her to be with her mom and them not to lose her memories. And I don't think Qifrey has... If Qifrey has thought of that possibility, he is not entertaining it at the moment because he's in his head going, that's not our problem right now. She's not going to get to the Tome Tower. We're not going to worry about that. As at the beginning in episode 1, Qifrey was like, I'm just using Coco to get to the Brimmed caps and then I'll erase her memory later. Now, do you think he's going to erase her memory after getting to know her and cozying up to her and realizing her love of magic and everything about her? No, he's going to change his mind. But if he's told the witch society that he's going to do it and then he changes his mind and they're like, well, now you have to do it, that's going to open up Pandora's box. And then I think that's going to be the real conflict of the show. We'll see. And then Elfreya for episode 10 says, it was fun to hear the trust issues with the witches. The show really has a clear divide in generations. While most of our young witches seem like they want to use magic for happiness, whether they take a bigger part in the elitist magic circle or not remains to be seen. And that kind of is, Elfreya's comment is kind of the complement to H-Banana7's comment, because while I do feel sympathy for the witches that know the system is rigged, I'm also kind of like, what are you doing though to make it better? Nothing. You're doing nothing. Like, the ancient ones are dead. They're gone. If you really wanted to, y'all could get together and change something, but you're actively choosing not to. They even make a point of saying that none of the big witch families we know of are from the original 3 witches that formed the pack. They're all from the apprentices of those witches. So they ain't even blood related. I'm like, if y'all really wanted to make a change, you could sit down and do it. But you don't want to, because then you wouldn't have your power and your status quo, and it could be an uncomfortable change for you that could benefit lots of other people, but that would, possibly take away from some of your comfort. And it happens every day. It happens in our own society, right? We do this every day. You see something you could help, but do you actually help? And so what I think is interesting is Elfreya's comment to complement that with saying that the younger generation, we have Tetia and Agat, we've talked about this in a previous episode, seem the most likely to adhere to the system. Agat wants to inherit the family business and she wants to be a part of that. So of course she wouldn't want to contradict or take into account changing the society status quo. Tetia seems to have drank the Kool-Aid. She's all into the status quo. Richeh and Coco seem a little bit on the outer edge, but Qifrey's trying to get Richeh to initiate into the witch world. He's trying to get her to conform into the society a little bit for her own good. So that's going to be interesting to see how it goes down. But yeah, it's so fascinating. Everything about this series with the world building is so intriguing, and the connections to our own world are fascinating. I've talked for nearly 20 minutes. already. Oh my God, y'all left some amazing comments. But then to talk about the dub real quick before we start this, Qifrey sounds so whimsical in the English dub for episode 11. He sounds so whimsical when he's teaching Coco at the start of the episode. He's all just right as rain, like all that. Olrugio and Qifrey, when they're talking about the snug stones, adorable, just hard eyes. Everything about it was precious. I loved it so much. The start with Really, which is Richeh's brother, when he's going away and becoming an apprentice, the English dub line is, quote, "Your big brother loves when you express yourself through your spells. Never lose that part of you." And so Richeh seems to worry that he doesn't want to see her spells anymore, and that if she doesn't keep up how she's been and what he liked about her, then she's going to never be able to be seen, quote unquote, by him again. But Qifrey, I think, is trying to show her that you can take this test and keep advancing while not losing your autonomy. He's like, I'm a rule breaker, look at me. And then Euini is adorable. Coco is a great example of something corrupt within the system because of how he views the apprentices. Glad watchful eyes exist. Maybe someone needs to go over there and keep a watchful eye over Coco. Just saying. And then I do think, in comparison to the Japanese sub, the English dub, when Qifrey gets down on his knees to like talk to Richeh about taking the test, the voice actor for Qifrey does such a good job of making his voice so soft and so compassionate when he's like, I very much care, which is why I want you to take this test. Like the caring and compassion in his voice came out so well, and it just was mwah. Just the English dub actors do such a good job, but Qifrey's voice actor is just, they are fantastic. They do such a good job as him. So anyway, yeah, I've talked for over 20 minutes. I'm so sorry. But this was too good of the last couple episodes. I wanted to address it. I want to hold the witch world accountable because they just strike me as the most elite of elites. And I'm like, I want to challenge that constantly. So we shall see, but let's not waste any more time, shall we? I am fired up and ready to go, so we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to start episode 12 of Witch Hat Atelier, the penultimate episode of season 1. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do it to it. So... Oh man! That's, yeah, leave on the cliffhanger. That's the route we're going. Oh! Now I'm super excited for episode 13. Obviously, I'm super excited. Look. Are the Brimmed caps villainous? They're played up to be that way, but we have a lot to talk about in this episode. There's Euini. I freaking love Euini. Every little kid character in this series, Tarda, Euini, all the girls, I just want to like gather them all up and hug them and get them away from these adults that don't need to be around them. Mainly Coco, and then obviously this Brimmed cap that is not as ambiguous. At least the Masked Witch. At least with the Masked Witch, they are hyper fixated on Coco being this messiah of witchdom. And so that's kind of their main MO right now. The Forbidden Witch that we don't know hardly anything about, that is invisible, the invisible man of witches, they seem a lot more nefarious and seem like they're more of a go-getter, we have an agenda, let's do it sort of situation. I really... Do I want this to be Attack on Witches? No, not necessarily. But I do think this series has a lot of potential. I'm not going to compare it entirely to Attack on Titan because it's not the same series at all. But in that series, there is a lot of discussion of moral ambiguity in humanity and just how layered humanity is and how you can't just separate things into black and white and good and bad. There are shades of gray that are so prevalent in ourselves as humans that you just can't be that absolute. And what I don't want and what I don't think is going to happen, I don't believe that every Brimmed cap is going to be this evil bad guy. I feel like just like how Qifrey is shady and gray as hell, he is silver as all get out. Qifrey does some very questionable things, but he's still viewed as the protagonist or on the protagonist's side. There has to be a decent brimmed cap, or a brimmed cap that has this sense of justice and are a brimmed cap because they just don't believe in the witch system. Not that they're evil, but they are disillusioned with the system and they want to change it. So I think that there are some brimmed caps out there, just like there are some pointed caps like Qifrey that are acting a little bit, skirting around the edges of witch society, if you will. And just like how Coco is a terrible pointed cap witch, I feel like not all the brimmed caps are going to be like the evil of all evil. I would be disappointed if that was the case, because then it's like, I feel the show has done a very good job of pointing out the layers and complexities of humanity. And if all the brimmed caps are just like villains of the week, then I think that would be a big miss for this series. And I don't think that that's going to be the case. But of course, some of them are probably going to be very dangerous and have agendas that are not going to be kind or could possibly be cruel. And I think that our Invisible Witch is one of those. So, you gotta start out with something a little more basic before you get into like the more nuanced witches, right? That's how we start, right? So I have a lot to say, and I've like gotten my drinks all ready to go for this. So God, we spent like 20 minutes on the intro alone. We're going to see what we get on this discussion, but we have lots to talk about. So let's just start up this episode and dive right in. So we're going to pull up the screenshots alongside Whiteboard Coon here in 3, 2, 1, and talk about the Shadow of Romonon, which, has kind of like a Roman thing to it. I'm sure that there's more to it than that, but let's bring out the old blue here, and we talk about Romonon, which I think that Romonon is a very good analogy to witch society as it is now. And you may be thinking, what? They're just a failed state, and that was before the Pact when things were bad and all this. There's some things that Qifrey says about the history that I'm like, that seems rather familiar. So it was home to the prosperous cavern nation of Romonon. So let's establish a couple things. It is a cavern nation. I was very much getting vibes of the dwarves from Lord of the Rings, where I had the Mines of Moria. I don't know if any of you have read Lord of the Rings. I was a huge Lord of the Rings nerd when I was in high school. I love Lord of the Rings, and so the Mines of Moria and like the dwarves kind of hunkering down and hoarding their wealth and having their outs against the elves and all this, like I was instantly reminded of that when reading this. I was like, ooh, fascinating. So, but also in terms of being a cavern nation, it's this idea of isolation. There's a concept of loneliness. There's a concept of greed being talked about in this. And there's also this concept of exclusion. That we are very exclusive. Only the best can come here and share the wealth that we have accumulated. So let's keep that in mind as Qifrey goes throughout and talking about this, that specialized in delicate magic craftsmanship. Gorgeous, gorgeous. The structure, everything, all of this is so beautiful. I love the glowing, like it looks magical. It also kind of looks like the underwater city that's the Great Hall, does it not? So we're having some comparisons here, where it's the idea, there is a little bit of comparison. So the comparison to the Great Hall, the idea of this delicate craftsmanship, which when you think about it, the magic itself is built upon a craftsmanship of the seals and the casting, and it's also a delicate system because you have to hide it from the outside. This is taking place back before the Pact, so everyone can use magic if they are able to have the skills and the know-how, apparently. I wish we could have seen the face. Yeah, I love like the long black hair and the pale skin. I love it. Kind of looks a little bit like Euini. Little bit. I love that. They clad themselves in magical gold works of art. Yep, and they wore their arrogance on their sleeves. So, this idea of the arrogance on one's sleeves. Now, I am not going to sit here and say that the pointed hat witches that we've seen so far are arrogant. I'm not going to say that because in all honesty, to be truthful, they really haven't been. I would say the society, I'm talking about the society as a whole. Arrogance is not quite the right word to describe it, but it very much is boasting of the fact that we are here to help you. We can help you. We can use our magic to better the world around you. Which is a pretty, there's a lot of hubris to that. Because it's saying, I have this power. I can use it to benefit you. You don't get that power. But I wouldn't describe the witching world as arrogant. So there is a little bit of dissonance there. They thought themselves as a better breed than the nations outside. Now that line... is very much a part of the witch society that we know now. They better view themselves as better people. And why would I say that? Because Agathe said it in the last episode. She literally said, well, if Coco, who's an outsider, could learn magic, then I guess that proves that she's the same as us. Girl, she was always the same as you. The outsiders are humans. Like you are. You are not better than the outsiders just because you have access to magic. But so many in the witch society believe they are better than the outsiders because they've been conditioned to believe so. They are no different. There's nothing that separates them from the outsiders except for knowledge and resources. That is it. They're not smarter than the people outside. They are not more athletic than the people outside. They are not more, have more stamina or willpower than the people outside. They just have been gifted knowledge of a tool and the tool itself. That's it. If you gave it to an outsider and showed them how to use it, they could be just as good as you or better. And that's what Coco is proving to Agathe. And that's kind of why I think the masked witch is see, an outsider can use magic just as well as any witch. And that's true. That's literally the truth. But the witch society has convinced itself that it's not. It has over time kind of corroded into this idea that they are better because of the magic they wield. When honestly, the magic, if you gave it to an outsider, they'd be just as good. But this thought still is the same. And they look down on those who visited them. We were conditioned as the audience to kind of look down on the dad, on Dada, a few episodes ago when he was begging Agathe to save his son. There were some people in the comments that were like, it's really sad that the dad doesn't try to do anything. And I'm like, well, he's been conditioned to believe that he can't. And the witch society has done a lot of that conditioning intentionally. They've created this separation of class based on who has access to magic and who doesn't. And so, they're making it to where the people from the outside feel as if, they're inferior. And I think a lot of these witches believe that they are superior based on their abilities. Rumors spread of the prosperity and more travelers came to visit. And soon... So before we get to this part here, I think this is an important thing to note because this is kind of the fear, I think, one of the fears of the witching society that's not really been talked about yet is this. Because what are the reasons why we don't want everyone to know magic? Well, one of the reasons is that some people would use it for violence. Clearly. There we go. Some would use it for their own gain or for selfish reasons rather than helping others. That one gets a little bit gray because some of those spells that they were talking about at the beginning of the series, I'm like, those are really kind of just personal use spells. So that one gets a little bit gray here. One thing that's not really been talked about too much is the idea of the exclusivity, which we talked about up here. But this is basically well, we don't want all these outsiders coming and taking our magic. We can't share it. There's not enough magic for everybody. Is kind of the mentality. It starts to become a thing where, well, we don't have room for you because then we won't have enough for ourselves. And that is legitimately, if it were a resource like food or water or energy or things like that, that could be a concern. It reminded me a lot of them coming in and trying to beg for the magic and beg for the resources. One comparison, this is not a perfect comparison, it's not the best analogy, but it would be in another story I read, Heaven Official's Blessing, there's a connection to immigration, and migrants coming in, and the city saying they don't have enough resources for everyone. They don't have enough food. They don't have enough water. So they're like, we don't have room for you. So we can't let everybody in. And that's something that we can kind of connect in our own world. Depending on where you live at, there are concerns about immigration in some countries and about resources and things like that. But this is not any of that. Magic is not a food. Magic is not water. Magic is something that's supposed to help everybody. So these people showing up and asking for it, and then Romonon being like, we just can't give that to you. That creates this exclusionary environment. And as we learn, it kind of collapses upon itself. So they were like, we can't let everybody learn magic. We can't let everybody have all the resources. So we're only going to allow those coming in that can benefit society. And it's like, oh, okay. So we only want the best. We only want the best genetics. Is it going to be like a eugenics thing? I don't think we can go that far. I don't think we need to go that far. But it's like, it's being a little selective. It's a slippery slope. It's a slippery serpent back slope. But it's like the path that only the worthy could travel. So we're only going to let those that are good and talented come in to get access towards our resources. Now, by worthy, do they mean that they have upstanding moral character? Well, no. Do they mean that they have a pure heart? Well, no. But do they have talent and possibly knowledge? Sure. Does talent and knowledge indicate that you are a good person? Nope. So that's an interesting form of exclusion. The unworthy could not traverse the road and could never reach Romonon. And they engraved the cave with a maze spell. So basically, again, tying to the witch society now, only those that could be capable witches were allowed. And I'm not saying that all of them, but basically they're like, we made a magic road. Only those that knew magic or knew how to incorporate or utilize magic could come to us, which is kind of like how the witch society is now. Only those within the circle that are deemed worthy get to be in there. Because again, it's like, Agathe brought that up when Coco came originally to the Atelier. She's like, well, why is she worthy? And Agathe's whole thing is questioning, like, I have to be a worthy witch. If I'm not a worthy witch, I don't get access to Romanov. I don't get access to the special place if I'm not worthy. Euini is like, if I'm not worthy, I don't get to go to the next level. All of this is about creating a system that only values worth. And that worth, the question is, well, worthy to who? That's the big question. So the city of Romonon in the story grows more beautiful and prosperous, which is kind of like the witching society. We have all these spells, all these great magic that benefit people, and it's people ever more haughty and exclusive until one day. This is the thing. This is like, I feel as if the witch society or the pointed hat society as it is now is not yet to where Romonon got, but it's on its way. Because once you get past this part, then everything gets more and more exclusive. And then what that leads to is that they start to turn their judgment upon each other. I love that. I love that symbolism because it's the individual from earlier that had like all the gold and everything. They started to turn their judgment upon each other, which we've already kind of witnessed in this series to a little bit of an extent. The idea of you have Tarda, who was apparently born in this witch society. His grandfather's a witch. So he was born in this society. He's part of the exclusive environment, so they should have a place for him. He's like on the verge of getting kicked out because of a defect that he was born with. And it's like, ooh, getting a little sketchy there. And then you have Coco, who she's a potential crack in the wall, like a potential crack in the cup. We can't have that. Everything has to be perfect. So we might have to pluck her out of the garden, so to speak. That's the metaphor Easties uses to keep the system perfect. And humans, the reason I bring Attack on Titan up is because there's one line from Attack on Titan that kind of summarizes everything, and I love it. It's true of humanity, it's true of that series, but it's the idea, as long as there are two humans, there will always be conflict. Humanity loves a scapegoat. They love someone they can put blame on. So I was talking in the intro during the OP, but I went on vacation last week, and one of the towns that I went to was Salem, Massachusetts, where in 1692, they had a witch trial where, almost 24 people were hung or burned alive at a stake because of basically religious psychosis and because of all this paranoia that turned out to be completely unfounded and completely unnecessary. But it was literally a case of, we need to scapegoat someone, and we chose a vulnerable population, mainly women and elderly women. Like, one woman that was hung was 71 years old, convicted of being a witch because she was suspicious for reasons that were unfounded. But they needed to scapegoat someone in the circumstance, and they chose a vulnerable population from within their own town, within their own families, and then it turned out later on, they were like, oh, that was a mistake. And it's like, of course it was. So it's just so fascinating, because the witch society itself, once it gets so exclusionary, well, then what are you going to do? They're going to start turning on each other. And we don't know the whole details about the pact and everything leading up to it and the three ancient ones and all of that, but I very much feel as if the inner circle started to get a little bit contemptuous, and then those three happened to have maybe the most know-how and the most influence, and they took matters into their own hands, like the people of Romonon are doing. Those deemed to be without merit were forced to exchange their flesh and blood, and through magic were turned into gold statues to decorate the city. That is terrifying. That is terrifying, y'all. So let's talk about this. So the people that were unworthy became the gold statues in the city, in Romonon. Which, the fact that they became living statues is terrifying. I thought about this in the moment, especially with like the murky black background, but I wondered, the idea of what seems to be unworthy gets turned into a treasure. I wondered, and this is just a theory, it is probably not correct, so don't take too much salt into it. I'm just pointing out an observation. But the tree branches that they use to create the ink, they pluck the tree branches that are considered to be poisoned or unworthy, and then transform the tree branches into the ink that they use to keep the society afloat. So there's an interesting parallel there between the unworthy people, living beings, being transformed into ornaments that are a staple of the city. There's a parallel there between the unworthy but living branches of the tree being used to create the ink that is part of sustaining the society as well. Now, am I saying that the silverwood trees were humans once and then they became trees and now they're being recycled into ink? That's a hot take. That's a crazy take. I don't want to think of us cannibalizing our own people into ink. Let's not get crazy. But I do think that the parallel is pretty interesting. And what a horrific sight, right? Yep, and it just started to decorate the city. And soon after, just as stagnant water becomes foul, the closed-off society became plagued by malaise. Let's use our English language vocabulary today. We haven't used the word malaise in a while. Basically, malaise is a vague general feeling of unwellness. So, yeah, a vague general feeling of unwellness when all of your citizens start to become ornaments in the city. Eventually, you run out of people to become ornaments. Eventually, you run out. And then what do? You kind of have killed yourselves off. Internal feuding made its people weak and tired. And in the end, it is said it collapsed under the weight of its own gold. They basically just kill. It's like, I remind of Edgar Allan Poe's Mask of the Red Death, where basically they just all end up corrupting each other and they cause their own deaths. Spoiler alert! Go read Mask of the Red Death. But yeah, So they basically cause their own corruption. Do I feel as if this is somewhat a slight comparison to the Pointed Hat Society now? Maybe. It could be what it becomes. I just feel as if anytime a society is set up that does not change over time or does not evolve or does not progress and they try to keep the same way forever, I feel as if that society is dooming itself because humans, we definitely tend to repeat history and we make the same mistakes over and over again, but we do progress, we do evolve, and people do, and all creatures evolve somewhat. So to keep something the same forever, I don't think that's possible. It's not true of societies, it's not true of cultures, it's not true of histories. Things will change. Things have to change. You have to progress somehow. You're either going to progress or regress, but you cannot stay stagnant. Humanity just doesn't do that. So I feel as if the Pointed Hat Witch Society has been running and operating on this system for a while now, but eventually it's going to have tensions. And your solutions are to either evolve and change with those tensions to address them and possibly keep them from happening again, or you can do like Easties and the Knights of Morales and just turn people into gold statues just erase their memories. And then see you've solved the problem. But then if you keep erasing memories, eventually you're not going to have anybody that remembers anymore. And then what do you do? So there are comparisons. There are comparisons with the society. It's really intriguing. And Qifrey's like, now all that remains is the labyrinthine cave and the serpent back road within. Yeah. So, I mean, Qifrey's like, all that's left are these remnants that people, and that's kind of an emblematic connection to Witch Society, to the Pointed Hat Society as well, is that he's like, we have all these remnants of things, but we don't know what they are for or how to use them because they're just ruins. Like he's talked about, there are all these spells that when we erased people's memories back during the days of the Pact, we lost this access to this knowledge. And it's a shame because it could be used to benefit people, but we're just choosing to erase this part of our culture and pretend like it didn't exist because we think it's dangerous. Humans are terrifying creatures. Yes! Yes, they are! It very much so. No truer statement has ever been said in the history of anything. Equally terrifying is how few of us realize what we're capable of. Qifrey is one to talk. Qifrey is one to talk about not realizing what they're capable of. So, this idea of humans and basically the unknown potential. That is scary. That is scary because, you know, somebody can cause a lot of damage and not realize what they're capable of, not knowing their own strength, right? And then Coco's like, well, but Master, you said magic exists to make people happy. It's a power used to bring color to the world. And Qifrey does the very Mr. Rogers thing of like, well, kids, if that's what you believe magic is for, you just keep that little mindset and that's what's going to happen with it. You guys are going to change the world. You guys are going to be the change that the world needs to see. And that is very idealistic. And I don't think Qifrey's wrong to say that. I think that the girls and all the kids in this series, if they grow up believing magic can have this potential and be used to help people and they keep that in mind, they absolutely will keep, you know, the future from becoming dour. The problem is, as we are seeing, there are active adult witches that are dousing those flames in real time, basically Kukro. And it's like, you know, if all of the teachers could be like Qifrey and Orugio, we'd be right as rain. We'd be in a utopia. But that is not the case. And unfortunately, we've seen in this episode with Euini the effect that these adults are having on these kids. So yeah. He's like, well, I'm sure it will be. And at first it's like all sunshine and rainbows. And then immediately it cuts to that damn eye that we can't see with a flame in there. And he's like, yeah, I'm sure as long as you kids believe it, it'll be right as rain. And then he becomes Willy Wonka from the Gene Wilder version. And he's like, but... and I was like, oh my God. That's terrifying. I want to know about that eye so bad. But the magic might create an happy result for our meal today. Qifrey is eternally fascinating, y'all. He really is. So yeah. So he's like, magic is a power to bring color to the world. I hope it truly does. He's like, I love these, like, I hope that's true. Which means he hopes it's true, but right now he's very cautiously optimistic. So yeah, let's get past the intro. I'm definitely going to go back through and do like a scene-by-scene analysis of the intro for the next episode, but we are not there. So yeah, so we're on Serpentback Road. I do appreciate that Altair stays with them because she's basically there to make sure that they can get through, and if they can't, then she's going to help escort them back to the beginning or make sure that they find their way back to the beginning of the cave if they fail the test. But the whole time, I was like, how is she going to get into a predicament where she can't help them? Turns out, if you get distracted by Qifrey, it becomes rather easy. So I was like, dang it, Qifrey, this is your fault. He's like sneezes somewhere. He's like, what's happening? But yeah, so I appreciate that Altair is there. She's just proctoring the test. She's not giving any advice. She's not telling them what to do. She's just observing that they can do it. And I appreciate that this test is not only showing them about themselves and what they are capable of, but it is also revealing if they are going to be able to cast spells in public, if they can think on the fly during emergencies, if they can handle unexpected twists and turns, like with the road being broken, things like that. Like, it's all designed to be the next step in, okay, we've determined you can cast seals. We've determined you can use magic. That's great. Now can you handle like a real life situation like what happened back a few episodes ago with the bridge falling out? Can you handle a situation like that where people need to be helped and you need to be relied upon using magic? I mean, I like the idea of the test. I think it's a good system. And Richeh actually, I don't think she realizes in this episode how much she's actually getting out of this test. Like Qifrey said, Qifrey was actually pretty smart in recommending her to the test because I think he knew with her like strong will that she would be able to rise above the occasion. And I think he knew Agat would be fine because she's just so stubborn. Okay, Euini and Richeh, can we just go ahead and get it out of the way? I ship them. I ship them so hard. I wondered if Euini would have green eyes because his like hat was green and the robes were green and these kids all have color-coded clothing and everything. I was like, are his eyes going to be green? He's adorable. He's so cute. I'm like, girl, Richeh, latch onto that and then wait like 15 years and you'll be set as right as rain. But I instantly wanted to ship them. I ship Richeh and Euini really good when they're older, you know. And so the spell is on the road, and they determine that you can only stand up straight when you're on the road. But you might fall into the labyrinth and end up back at the entrance. And I love that Agat realizes that every stone has a casting seal on it, which, you know, ties to the magic that Rugio uses, ties to the magic that the Mastwist uses, all of that. And that's when Agat's like, okay, I got this. We're going to use a water spell to determine which stones we can walk on to keep ourselves, you know, on our game. The one thing that I thought was kind of sad in this moment was that Euini's like, oh, wow, like Agat, oh, that was so resourceful. You really do live up to the Arklum name. Even though Agat, you know, kind of prides that and wants to continue on the family business, there is a part of me that kind of feels sad for her because she's not being recognized as just like, she's smart because she's Agat and because that's her autonomy and that's naturally how great she is. She's smart because she's an Arklum. Like, it's expected. It's warranted, and it's like, oh, well, of course she is. And I feel like that kind of undermines, I know Euini doesn't mean to, it's not his fault, he's not doing it on purpose or with any malice, but it does kind of undermine her abilities that of Agat when everything's just kind of pinned to her being an Arklum. So, then we have Richeh talking about the right answer and the right spell, the right path. She's like, always sticking to what's right is not what I want to do. So we established with Richeh this idea that she wants autonomy, which we've kind of compared Richeh with Agat a little bit and contrasted them. But I think there is a comparison where I think Agat wants to stand out and be recognized for who she is, but she is kind of relying and falling back on her name in a sense. Whereas Richeh, she wants complete autonomy. She wants to be herself, and she wants to decide her fate. I don't know. I'm just saying that sticking to what's right is what I don't want to do. This pointed hat society very much has a set in stone guide to what is right, and you don't get to stray from it, or you could lose your memories. Qifrey gets away with it because he's a slutty owl man and he has friends in low places. Possibly, or friends in high places. But he gets away with it for whatever reason. But I feel like Rich's attitude, I'm like, girl, the witch society here with the pointed hats, they're not going to celebrate all of this thinking that you have. I think that it is good that she realizes what benefits her in this exam is that she realizes that she can use her own magic and just modify it. I think that that's what Qifrey's been trying to get at with her, being like, you need to learn the other facets of magic and then combine them with your own that you're really good at, and that's going to help you out in a lot more scenarios. So I think he wanted her to take this exam to help realize and come to that conclusion. And in a sense, Qifrey's trying to tell her, like, you can still be yourself and be a full-fledged witch and go through these trials, but do it in a way that celebrates you and yourself. But as a kid, when she's like, I want to do whatever I want, I'm like, you do know all the rules this pointed hat society has, right, girl? Like, you do know that. Now, is the teacher that she had, we also get to see her spell. Her spell is adorable. Her spell has like the little arrow and the ribbon and everything. It looks like a little face. It's super cute. Is her, the witch that's following her, they have the white hair, so it's not Coco. But damn, everybody in this series really likes that long wavy hair, don't they? Drawing more worthless spells. So yeah, we go back and see like she's wearing the apprentice robes of the one there, right? Okay. The robes that person is wearing kind of have the same front as Qifrey's a little bit, but I don't think it's Qifrey's mentor. I don't think so. The front coat just looks very, very, very similar, and it's gray like Qifrey's, which is interesting. But then the little tassel that is on, well, the little tassel kind of looked like the tassel on Orugio's hat, but then this part here, that is the little center part before you get to the tassel, that center part looks like the glasses that Qifrey wears. It looks like the little diamond that Qifrey wears. And the thing that they have, the cloak that the master has, looks kind of like Qifrey's. So, the way of how mean and stern this teacher is, I can't imagine that they are the same teacher that taught Qifrey, but maybe that this master came from the same school as Qifrey. Maybe they're like brothers. They came from the same, like they learned from the same mentor maybe. Because they're like, why can't you just master what I tell you? Okay, so we kind of see their hat there, but I guess maybe their hat looks a little bit different. Maybe a wee bit different. We conveniently don't get to see Richeh with her hat on, and their hat's kind of muddled, so maybe it is different. Indeed. Maybe they are. Maybe I'm reading too much into it and the design is ubiquitous to the entire community. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But in any case, Richeh is like, they're not scribbles. They're my spells. I can understand why she is so, again, all these teachers so far, Coco and then Richeh's like old teacher, like they're actually kind of terrible. So, Qifrey might be an exception to the rule. Maybe. Who knows? But she's like, I don't want to throw out who I am. And I feel as if Richeh felt so disrespected. She was like, these aren't just doodles. They're my own spells. They're part of my personality. And for that teacher to completely disregard them, she felt like they were completely disregarding her entire person. And so I can get why she's been traumatized into this conclusion that if she's forced to learn any other spells, she's going to lose the autonomy that she has. I could see that. Which means... And so, meanwhile, Agat is trying to convince her Meryphon to go along with her. I love when she tries to get a hold of it, and she's like, just follow me, and the Meryphon's like super cute. And like just does a little head tilt. I'll admit, I'm a sucker for a head tilt too. My dog Ruby does a head tilt, and I'm like, I'm swooned. I'm won over. I'm like, okay, I'll do whatever you say. You want me to rob a bank? I'll do it, darling. And so she's like, don't try to win me over with your cute little mannerisms. But yeah, so then Euini says that they're vocalizing, so you could try to mimic it to get them to follow. And I love that Richeh's just like, she's such a badass. Richeh's like, I don't have to do what people tell me to. I'm going to be an adult. I know how this world works. Just you watch. And I love that she used the crystal ribbons to get the Meryphon's attention and to like lure them away like Sarah Sanderson and Hocus Pocus to following her. You may have taken this test before, but I wish you'd stop blathering about the right answers and telling us what to do before we even try. That's her thing. She's all about, she's like, I wish I could just try this without you trying to tell me the right way before you even see what I have to offer. Because maybe what I do is better. I don't know. She's like, that's not the type of witch I want to be. I'm going to get to the end of the road using my own spells. And Euini has, so Richeh is like, I want to be independent. I want to do my own thing. I want to get there on my own merits. And Euini, who I love so much, he has been conditioned to believe that there is just a specific right path. There are not, multiple ways to get to the end route. There's one way to do it, and that's the way the world works. And he does bring up a good point. There is a test, and the test does have right answers on it. He's not wrong there. Mm-hmm. But I would argue that you can work around a test depending on the parameters. So, for example, I took a history class once, and it was an essay test, and I studied for it and studied for it and studied for it. It was on U.S. history, and we had to write about like one of the most monumental events that happened in the latter half of the 19th century. And so, or the 20th century. So I wrote about like World War II and leading to like what happened in the U.S. afterwards. My friend in the class wrote the lyrics to Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire. He got an A. And I was so mad. I was like, what do you mean? I studied and did all this research and got all these answers. And he was like, well, this is what I thought the answer was, and this is my style. And the teacher gave him an A. And I was like, but that's kind of a case in point that there are tests and there are right answers, but the way we get to those answers can be done in a way that's unique to ourselves, and it can play to our strengths. Now, again, I know the comments, some of you will be like, well, there are some black and white tests where it's like A, B, C, or D. Sure, I'm not saying there's not, but in the real world, the tests that we are given, figuratively, have answers that are correct or beneficial, but there's more than one way possibly to get to them. And then this part here, Euini's like, we're apprentices, we're inexperienced, and we're children. He's been conditioned to believe that he is inferior because he does not have the knowledge that his teacher has. Even if he has more potential, I think that Euini could already best his teacher if he tried. He's like, I'll fail again. And I love this, where she's like, that's the kind of talk that I hate. I love that Richeh, again, like my shipper goggles were like adjusted and on. I was like, oh my gosh. She's just like, she's trying to get him to like become more of himself and to open up and be him and to just push away all of that talk. And yeah, she would not have done well with Kukro. He's like, but if you use a spell that hasn't been tested, it could fail. And I like that Agat steps in like, hey, still here. She's like, I'm still here, want to give my 2 cents. She's like, you just trial and error. She's like, you try it, if it fails, you've learned something, and you can, She's like, I happen to know someone who learns that way. Her referencing Coco, her being like, I know a friend of a friend. I don't know, we're barely acquaintances. But she tries things, and if she fails, she figures out a way to learn from it and does better the second time. I'm like, Agat just cannot help but give some reference to Coco, and I live for it. She's like, do things your way. I don't need your... And I love that Rich is like, I don't need your permission to be myself, Agat. So, she ends up... I love the little feather from the Meryphon. And so that's when they realize that the water has ended. The path has ended. And now they have to figure out a way to get to the other side. That's crazy! I love that image there. A road created to prevent the unworthy from entering. But the thing is, everyone, I think one of the lessons that this story, this episode gives us is everyone is worthy. Everyone is worthy. They just have to figure out a way for their worth to be presented in the right context. Because all of them get across, but they all get across in very different ways. Even Altair gets across in a different way. So there's so many different ways to do something, but you have to find the way that works for you and that allows you to do it the most successfully. And so if that's the case, then again, everyone has the potential to be worthy enough to do magic. You just they have to have the confidence and the know-how and the resources to be able to do it properly. And so, again, all the references in this episode, y'all. So meanwhile, our picnic is ending, and Coco's like, oh, I just happened to notice a witching robe fluttering in the distance. She's like, I thought I saw a robed figure over there just now. Look at this bitch. Look at this owl bitch with Brush Buddy. If I were Qifrey, I'm just gonna, this isn't a rant, this is just an observation. If I were Qifrey, and I knew that Coco was being targeted by the masked witch and other brimmed cap witches, and I knew that she had been followed and stalked by them, and that said masked witch had been finding out your location and had access to your location, and Coco says that she saw a robed figure, I've been taking that hella seriously and doing a dang search party and being like, okay, where? Let's look into this rock, listen to this rock. They were just on the edge of the cliff. I'm like, Qifrey, this girl's being stalked by the brimmed caps. If she says she sees something weird, I would have acted on it, but he does not. Yep, she just looks over the cliff. She's like, well, there's no one there, is it? And then Qifrey's like, let's just go. I'm like, Qifrey, if you'd walked to the edge of that cliff and had looked around, you would have saw the dang brimmed cap witch. There are moments where Qifrey is brilliant, and then there are moments where I just want to gently put him in my hands and just shake him vigorously. I'm sure that's how Orugio feels. Can we also just, before we get in the dark cave, can we just appreciate the drip? Can we just appreciate the robes? The entire look is iconic. It's so good. Just the solid black cap and the black robe. It's so simple. It's so iconic. I love it. I love it. It'd be really hard to cosplay. I could see somebody being the masked witch and having a pole with the forbidden witch beside them with the invisible witch. I could see it, but dang, it's so iconic. I love it. So then our troop has to figure out, what do we do? How do we get over the gap in the road? And they each find different ways. And so I love that they draw into their robes. And honestly, Rich's way is so perfect. The ribbon made of stone. I love it. It fits. I love that Richeh is all about Rich's ribbons. Richeh could start a company, Rich's Ribbons, make a killing. The alliteration, perfect. But I love that she does it her way, using the spell that the show has cleverly built up that has been her specialty. The stone altering spell has been her specialty, and that's what she ends up using. Then we have Agat, who uses... I think it's interesting that Richeh went with the spell that is her specialty, and it works very well and very easily, which kind of is proving Rich's point, which I think that's why Qifrey wanted her to take the test, because she would find this out along the way. What's interesting to me is that Agat doesn't so much use... I don't think Agat knows her specialty. I feel like Agat's specialty is more to do with flame, but that's no help here. So she uses what she considers to be the most useful spell in the moment, But I think that shows a little bit maybe of Agat's nervousness, because she points out that she doubts herself and doesn't draw the circle as well as she could, so the spell's a little shaky. And it nearly caused her to fall in the chasm and have to end the test. So I think that's worth noting, that Agat's not reached the same confidence level yet, or found her own specialty. And then we have Euini. And I like that Altair is like, it's your turn. And I like that she never tries to help him. She never pushes him. She never says, hurry up, or like, get it. She's just sitting there watching him, waiting to see what he does. And our poor boy, he's like a little turtle. He just wants to withdraw within himself because he's like, I can't draw when people are watching me. And I felt so bad for him because he doubts himself so much. He's like, I don't have talent, courage, confidence, aptitude, skill, nothing. And that is all just a projection of what that asshole Qifrey has told him. He has just reinforced this idea that he's worthless. And I'm like, nobody should have to like suffer with that. He's like, I'm going to fail again. And Agat's like, you're fine. You've got experience. You can do this. Just draw a spell. And he's like, I can't. She's like, well, why are you doing the call? He's like, my hands won't stop shaking. I've never been able to draw when someone else is watching. And I mean, you know, I could understand why he probably didn't tell Qifrey that, because Qifrey probably would just get flustered about it and be like, well, you should be able to draw while I'm watching. And all that sort of thing. But with that being said, his poor shaky drawings. The thought of their eyes on me makes me sweat and tremble, and I mess up the lines and the spells turn out awful. Look, I'm going to reiterate it in this, but it came to my attention during this episode that Euini is a prime recruit for the Brimmed Caps if they're looking to recruit someone. Why is he a primed recruit? Well, for a number of reasons. One, his teacher Qifrey is a terrible person. So if the Brimmed Caps were like, we can teach you magic and get you away from this guy that's, you know, that's squandering your potential, that's calling you worthless. We don't think you're worthless. He's calling you worthless, but we could show you. We fully believe in your potential and we can bring that out. Don't stay with this guy that's horrible to you. Come with us. Like Flotsam and Jetsam, please come with us. Like I could see him doing that. Euini is smart and he is talented. He has a lot of potential. And maybe it's just the Brimmed Cap's vibe, but the whole thing of him using the shadows as part of his, when he's talking about hiding in the shadows and doing magic where no one can see, I was like, it's kind of sounding like what the Brimmed Caps do. So I could see them relating to you and being adamant about that. And the idea of doing magic where no one sees. I mean, and also Euini, even though he gains a lot of self-confidence talking with Richeh, and after he does get to the other side, he gains some self-confidence, which is amazing. He's not like as confident as Richeh as Agat by far. So I could see the Brimmed Caps preying on that and his insecurities as, you know, like, come join us. Again, the Brimmed Caps are making me think of the Foot Clan from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where they're like, the outside world rejects you, but we're all buddies here. Come on, join us. Join the dark side. We have cookies. I feel like Euini is a prime recruitment potential. I felt so helpless. And yeah, this idea of like, he forms not only, also that massive book, that massive wizarding book, excuse me, what's all in them big ass books? I want to know, are there atlases? Are they just big spell books? What are those? But he makes this fortress out of all of these books, which, you know, is metaphorically him closing himself off from the world, but also it kind of gives off turtle vibes, which with the green kind of fits that. I also love this aesthetic. I studied there with the books and everything to get the right spell in there. Also, I know it's magic, it's fire magic, so it's not necessarily a flame hazard, but it's not a fire spell, so it's just a light spell, so it wouldn't cause, like, these books to all burn down, but still, dang, we're not forbidden from bringing our palm choirs with us. So I only need to close the circles to cast the spells. But I didn't expect a gap in the road. I've been punished for not doing it right. So he was like, I thought I could skirt around my fears and anxieties by doing some pre-made spells, but I wasn't anticipating a gap in the road. And now, because I'm not a good witch or a worthy witch, I'm being punished because I didn't do things the right way. And I love that Rich is like, you said you want to be yourself. Oh, he says, you said you want to be yourself, but I wish I could stop being me. Oh, his green eyes. Just everything about him and Richeh, it's just such shipping fodder. The way that they're so similar, but the way they come about things so differently, and their different personalities. I'm like, they're just like magnets. I'm so enamored. I'm all on board this ship so much. So Euini, he's like, you just want to be yourself and you don't want to change. He's like, but I hate how I am. He's like, I hate how I am, and I want to be different for myself because I hate that how I feel. I wish I could be literally anyone else. And so Agat says this test is about whether you can cast spells in front of outsiders. And of course, I love this visual here because Agat, one of Agat's flaws is that she sometimes goes to a negative place immediately. So like the first thing she thinks of in this moment is, well, if he can't be confident and cast spells by himself and not in front of outsiders, then he's probably not going to be a witch, so he's probably not going to pass this test. Oh, well, I guess I don't know what else to do about it. But if you look, Agat is looking down in contemplation. Richeh is looking up at him, like with confidence and with like wanting to motivate him. I love that. And she's like, you can do it. You can do it just as you are. She's like, you said the answer yourself just now. Didn't you realize it? If you concentrate and draw when you're alone, then be alone right now. I love that she takes what Qifrey told Coco back in the last episode, where he's like, take those skills that you have. Those will come naturally, and focus on the stuff that you're not as good at, but also combine it with what you are good at, and that will become good as well. So she's like, okay, if you're great doing spells by yourself, then isolate yourself right now. You're a witch. Isolate yourself. Make it to where you're alone, and then you should be fine. And that's what he ends up doing. Olivia's like, but how? And she's like, however you can. Magic can make stones grow or make rain fall. You can make all kinds of spaces to make yourself alone. And he's like, well, I don't know if I can do that on the spot. I love that shot where he's looking at her through the hair in his hands. The shipping fodder, y'all. I love that shot. It's so, so good. So he ducks away like a little turtle. He kind of looked a little bit like, I don't know, like the masked witch ducking in on themselves. Look, the vision's already been planted there. The seeds have been planted, as the masked witch would say. And so he goes into his little turtle shell. And then I love that Agat starts to pressure him, and she's like, don't interfere. She's like, an artist takes time. Like, don't interrupt the process. Trust the process. And he's like, I hate this. I'm the worst. I must look so pathetic. This is the only thing I could come up with. They might be laughing because I probably look ridiculous or stupid. He's like, the proctor's probably disappointed at me. And I love this moment here where he looks over and he sees that Altair's like, no. You got this. Like, God, I love Altair so much. She's fabulous. She's just like, no, you got this. It's going to be all right. I'm going to let you work it out. I've got faith in you. And then his reaction. Oh, green is my favorite color. So y'all know I am living it up with these green eyes. And green eyes and black hair. Love it. Love it. No one is disgusted, laughing, or making fun of me. There's no one but me. And I was like, make it something that you can do, and you can do it. The only one casting a curse to sabotage me was myself in the mirror. I love that shot. I love the way that he reflects there. I love it. Makes him almost look like a heart. It's so good. It also looks like a chrysalis breaking open. The imagery is amazing, y'all. And the green tones, and he's like a mirror. He's like, where is the seal? That is so complicated. I love the fact that there's the eyes on it and the X and the hourglasses and all the squiggles. It's so complex. It conceals the wearer and makes them into a shadow that projects the image of the beast. The spell is so layered. But then maybe... I love it. He's like, okay, you're by yourself. You can do this. I love it. And then, as it's transforming, I like at first that Alaira is like, is this an ancient unknown spell? Is this a trap? Is it forbidden magic? And he's like, no, this is my spell. Also, I just want to point out, if we're talking about shipping and comparisons, sorry, I'm not off the bandwagon. I will never be off the bandwagon. But her spell, Richeh's, is about a clear, translucent crystal. His is about a dark, murky shadow. The polar opposites just... I'm out! I can't stop! And then she's like, what happened to your cloak? And he's like, when I ducked inside, I could see the casting seal. And I just erased the mirror part, and I made just a cloak of borrow shade. Love that! Yes, so it's just the cloak. Oh my god, and now I can hide in the dark and draw what I need to. He looks so cute there! You would kind of think it's creepy, but it's actually really adorable. All right. Adorable. Love it. It's so clever. I just, everything about it. And now the Meryphon can't see me, but he's like, I can mimic the cries so that it'll follow me. He's adorable. Euini, amazing. Him and Tarda, let me gather them up. They are precious. Freaking love them. All that matters is that it can't tell I'm a human, right? And she's like, well, I love that he's just like, is that true? He's so cute there. I like that she's like, well, yes, technically. That's you're technically getting around the loophole of the rules. You're not really human in this point. Being hidden means being alone. Again, the brimmed caps give off that vibe. I'm just saying, I can draw like this. Yes, I love it. And then he creates the cry, makes a broomstick that he can fly over with. I mean, if he had a brimmed cap, he would look the part. I'm just saying. It's badass. I love Euini. He looks amazing. And then, yeah, like that whole thing there, incredible. And then lands. It's embarrassing to do this way, but I think this might be who I am. I love our little shadow witch. I love our shadow witch. I love it. And I love that Richeh walks up to him and she's like, you don't want to not be yourself anymore? And he's like, well, yeah, a little less anyway. Yes, I just love it. Love it so much. It's won my heart over immediately. So yeah, she's like, you're not worthless at all. He's like, I might still say it, but I'll work hard to keep that from being the last word. I love it. And then he's like, thank you, Richeh. Aww. I love our little confidence-growing bean. How could you not love that? She's like, well, besides, the feeling of not being able to do what you want to, I understand it as well. Again, they have such connections. So, and then Agat's like, hey, still here. She's like, that's what lets us improve. You know, yep, we're right as rain. You all are learning some valuable lessons. And Agat's like, I'm going to become a better version of myself. I like that Agat's like, I know who I am. I'm proud of who I am. I know that as a witch I can continue being myself. I'm just going to better that version of myself. Thank you very much. The purpose of the test is to learn about yourself. There's only one path forward, but the spell we draw along it are all different. We search for our own way and use it as the path to walk ahead. Over and over again. I love that she points out to Richeh, which is what Qifrey has been trying to get her to understand with the whole test. She's like, look, this whole test is figuring out how to move forward in your own way, and you will be tested on that over and over again, but you have to find a way to move forward on your own terms. And it's possible that that's what being a witch is all about. She's like, see, tests aren't bad. And I love her face. I love that she's like, well, until Master Qifrey apologizes for lying and making me take it, he's earned an angry Richeh point. Let us not earn angry Richeh points, because those seem quite dangerous. So then Alaira makes the biggest mistake. She says, speaking of Qifrey, she's like, lately, has he mentioned, she put her guard down and that witch showed right up. She's like, has he mentioned anything? Like, what was she about to say? Like, what was she about to say? Has he mentioned anything about Coco? Has he mentioned anything about the Great Hall? Like, I would be very curious to know what she was going to say, but maybe we'll find out later. But yeah, at that point, she's put her guard down, wasn't paying attention, and the brimmed cap was like, bye. And they're like, oh no. So in this moment, I don't know what magic the brimmed cap is using around her. It's some kind of shadow spell that is similar, perhaps, to... Okay, so she takes her hat off, or it tries to take her hat off in that moment as it's grabbing her, and she tries to she flings her hat around. Okay, she flung her hat, and it became like a little bird torpedo, probably to go warn Qifrey that something's going down. She sent the hat off to go warn Qifrey, something's up, you need to come and save the kids. That's probably why they got mad that Qifrey left, because they're like, what if something happens and we need help, and you just left? No other witches would know we were here. What we don't know is what kind of magic this brimmed cap witch has used to teleport her away. I'm assuming it's similar. It looks like the water or air that the masked witch uses, that the eyeball witch uses to escape. It looks similar to that, so it might be like a teleportation magic. What it also looks like that's interesting is the ink. It looks like a big vat of ink transporting her away. So that's curious. But yeah, they could have used this spell to transport her wherever. And she says, listen, don't listen to anything the brimmed caps say. Don't be led astray. Run as fast as you can. Forbidden magic is boop. And then he disappears with her. Now, what that means... Is the forbidden magic witch gonna come back? That is a great question. Is that gonna happen? Are they gonna come back and try to talk to them? I think that's interesting what she said. She said, one, don't listen to the brimmed caps. I mean, obviously, you don't want to listen because they might try to trick you, your kids. Also, don't listen to strangers. Stranger danger. But also... if you listen to what they have to say, she's worried about them being young and impressionable and possibly swayed by what they said or following them based on what they said. She also could be worried that if the brimmed caps say something that the kids shouldn't hear and Easties and the Knights of Morales find out about it, it could cause their memories to be erased. And she's like, you need to, like, don't be led astray. Which basically assumes that all brimmed caps are evil. They're not saying anything good, anything worth knowing, of course. But I think she's acknowledging to them that once you become a brimmed cap, you are marked as a wanted witch. And if anyone finds you, you will have your memories erased. Which is part of who you are, so part of you will cease to exist. Which is a big deal. And then she just tells them to run away. And she starts to talk about forbidden magic. But... she doesn't get to say anything else, so I'm like, is forbidden magic... Well, here's the thing. Forbidden magic is traceable because they've said that when forbidden magic happens, someone gets notified about it because she said this was like the first time it was spotted in 4 years. So, if the Knights of Morales catch wind of forbidden magic, which they did with the sandstorm, then they're going to arrive. And as we saw with Coco, if Easties and them don't have any tangible proof... they find a scapegoat and erase their memories. So all these kids are in danger. Oof. Qifrey, what are we going to do? What are we going to do now? Is Qifrey going to be able to stop in and save them? Are they in trouble with the Knights of Morales if they show up? What's happened to Altair? Is that Brimmed Cap Witch going to come back? Lots of things to think about, but I'm going to wait and check the comments for episodes 10 and 11. And then I will watch episode 13 because I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait any longer than that. I'm going to have to see it. So I've talked over an hour about this episode, but it was so good. I loved this episode, and I'm so excited to see what the season finale has picked out for us. It's going to be a wild ride. So anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful week. I'm excited to hear your thoughts down below. Please take care, stay safe, and yeah, we'll be back with episode 13, the season finale of Witch Hat Atelier next week. And I will see you all again real soon with more reactions. Bye.